One day you'll regret being this comfortable. Not loudly, not dramatically, no one will announce it. It won't come with a warning sign or a countdown clock. It will come quietly, like a cold realization you can't shake, sitting alone with your thoughts at night, staring at a ceiling you've stared at for years, realizing nothing really changed except time ran out. And the scariest part, you felt fine the whole way there. Right now, comfort feels harmless. It feels earned. It feels like peace. You tell yourself, I'm not lazy. I'm just resting. I'm not stuck. I'm just waiting for the right time. I'm not afraid. I'm just being realistic. But comfort is the most convincing liar you will ever meet. It never screams. It whispers. It tells you tomorrow will be easier. It tells you you've got time. It tells you that staying where you are is safer than risking embarrassment, failure, or pain. And every day you listen, it tightens its grip. Comfort doesn't ruin your life overnight. It erodes it slowly. It makes you forget what hunger feels like. Not hunger for food, hunger for meaning, hunger for growth, hunger for something more than waking up, surviving the day, distracting yourself at night, and calling that a life. Comfort teaches you how to tolerate dissatisfaction so well that you stop noticing you're dissatisfied at all. Look at your routine. Be honest. How many days feel exactly the same? Same wake up, same scroll, same excuses, same promises you swear you'll keep next week. And here's the brutal truth. The life you're living right now, if nothing changes, that's the life you're choosing, not accidentally, actively. Every comfortable decision is a vote for the future you're trying not to think about. You think regret comes from failing. It doesn't. Regret comes from not trying. From knowing deep down you had more in you, but you negotiated with comfort instead. You settled for good enough because great required discomfort. You avoided the pain of discipline and unknowingly signed up for the pain of regret. A pain that lasts much longer and hurts much deeper. Comfort makes you feel smart for avoiding risk. It tells you you're being mature, responsible, logical. But growth has never been comfortable, not once in history. Every version of you that ever mattered was born in discomfort. The uncomfortable conversations, the uncomfortable habits, the uncomfortable sacrifices, the uncomfortable truth that the life you want will demand a version of you that you haven't become yet. And here's what no one tells you. The longer you stay comfortable, the harder it becomes to leave. Comfort weakens your tolerance for struggle. It makes effort feel heavier, fear feel louder, resistance feel unbearable. What used to feel like a challenge now feels like a threat. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to design your entire life around avoiding discomfort instead of chasing growth. You don't notice it at first. You just say no a little more often. You dream a little less. You stop pushing yourself because you know how this ends anyway. You start calling ambition unrealistic and discipline obsessive. You surround yourself with people who normalize stagnation so you don't have to feel guilty about yours. And comfort smiles because it's winning. One day you'll look back and realize comfort didn't protect you. It robbed you. It robbed you of urgency. It robbed you of hunger. It robbed you of the version of yourself that could have existed if you had just been willing to be uncomfortable a little longer. And that realization, it doesn't motivate you. It haunts you because by the time comfort turns into regret, the cost is higher. Your energy isn't the same. Your responsibilities are heavier. Your fear is stronger, and your excuses sound more convincing than ever. You don't regret being comfortable when you're young and capable. You regret it when you're older and tired, staring at a life that feels smaller than it should have been. Comfort delays pain. It doesn't eliminate it. It simply exchanges short-term discomfort for long-term regret. Discipline hurts now but pays later. Comfort feels good now but charges interest. And that bill always comes due. If this is hitting you good, it means you still feel something. It means you haven't gone numb yet. Because the most dangerous stage of comfort isn't laziness, it's numbness. When you stop feeling dissatisfied, when you stop questioning, when you stop imagining anything better, that's when comfort has done its job completely. You were not meant to be this comfortable. You were not built for a life that feels safe but empty. You were built to struggle towards something that matters. And the longer you wait, the louder that quiet voice inside you will become. The one that whispers late at night, you're wasting your potential. Ignore it long enough and one day it will stop whispering. It will simply say, this is it. And that's the day regret wins. Comfort never announces itself as the enemy. It doesn't show up looking dangerous. It shows up dressed as stability, balance, and being realistic. It convinces you that ambition is reckless and that wanting more is somehow immature. Slowly, subtly, it reframes your dreams as inconveniences instead of necessities. And you don't fight it because nothing feels wrong enough to fight. Ambition doesn't disappear all at once. It fades. It gets postponed. It gets revisited later. You don't stop dreaming. You just stop acting. You start saying things like, I'll focus on that when life slows down, not realizing life never slows down. It only fills up. Comfort teaches you to delay action until conditions are perfect, knowing damn well perfection never comes. At first, you still feel capable. You still believe you could change if you wanted to. That belief becomes your trap. Because as long as you believe you could act, you feel no urgency to actually do it. Potential becomes a pillow you sleep on instead of a fire that pushes you forward. You confuse ability with action, and comfort loves that confusion. The most dangerous thing about comfort is how reasonable it sounds. It tells you to be patient, to wait, to not rush, to avoid burnout, to avoid embarrassment, to avoid risk. And piece by piece, ambition gets negotiated down into something smaller, safer, quieter, until one day you realize you don't even recognize the version of you who used to want more. You start protecting your comfort instead of your future. You organize your days around convenience, not growth. You choose easy dopamine over hard progress. Scrolling replaces creating. Watching replaces building. Planning replaces doing. And because nothing catastrophic happens immediately, you assume nothing is wrong. But ambition doesn't die from catastrophe. It dies from neglect. Comfort rewires your brain. It trains you to associate discomfort with danger instead of growth. Effort feels heavier than it used to. Resistance feels personal. The smallest obstacles feel like proof that this path isn't meant for you. And slowly you stop trusting yourself to endure hard things. That's when ambition becomes intimidating instead of exciting. Notice how comfort changes your language. You stop saying I will and start saying I could. You stop saying when I do this and start saying if I ever. You laugh at your old goals like they were naive. You call discipline too extreme. You call obsession unhealthy. And deep down, it's not because those things are wrong. It's because they would expose how far you've drifted. Comfort also changes who you listen to. You gravitate toward people who validate stagnation. People who say you're fine the way you are. People who feel threatened by growth, so they disguise fear as wisdom. Because growth is lonely and comfort is social. Comfort gives you community. Growth demands separation. Here's the part nobody wants to admit. Comfort makes mediocrity feel like a choice instead of a failure. You don't feel like you lost. You feel like you opted out. And that illusion keeps your ego intact while your potential quietly rots. You tell yourself, I need more, when the truth is you're afraid of what it would cost to become more. Ambition requires tension, a gap between where you are and where you want to be. Comfort removes that tension by convincing you that the gap doesn't matter, that wanting more is greedy, that dissatisfaction means you're ungrateful. So you learn to suppress dissatisfaction instead of listening to it, even though dissatisfaction is often the signal that growth is calling. The longer you stay comfortable, the more ambition feels like betrayal. Betrayal of routine, betrayal of expectations, betrayal of the identity you've built around being the stable one, the realistic one, the easygoing one. And changing now would mean admitting that staying the same was a mistake. Comfort protects you from that admission, at the cost of your future. One day you realize something terrifying. You're no longer afraid of failing, you're afraid of starting. Because starting would wake ambition back up. And ambition would demand sacrifices you've grown unwilling to make. Comfort has trained you to love predictability more than possibility. This is how people wake up at 40, 50, 60 years old and say, I don't know what happened. What happened was nothing. And that's the problem. Nothing happened while time did everything. Comfort didn't steal your ambition violently. It lulled it to sleep. And the longer it sleeps, the harder it is to wake. Delay is not a time problem. It's an identity problem. People don't delay because they're busy. They delay because acting would force them to confront who they really are. Every time you say, I'll start tomorrow, what you're really saying is, I don't trust myself enough to handle the discomfort today. And that sentence, repeated often enough, becomes a belief. Self-betrayal doesn't feel dramatic. It feels reasonable. You don't wake up and decide to abandon yourself. You negotiate, you compromise, you make deals with your future self that your present self has no intention of keeping. Just today, just this week, I'll make it up later, and each time you break a promise to yourself, something invisible cracks. Your self-trust is fragile. It's built through kept promises, not big wins. When you say you'll wake up early and you don't, when you say you'll work on that goal and you scroll instead, when you say this time will be different and it isn't, your brain learns something brutal. Your words mean nothing. And once your mind stops believing you, motivation collapses. This is why delay is so destructive. It trains your nervous system to associate intention with disappointment. You stop feeling inspired by your own goals because experience has taught you they won't happen anyway. So your brain protects you by numbing desire. It's not that you don't want more, it's that wanting has become painful. Delay also creates the illusion of control. As long as something is postponed, it still feels possible. The dream is alive because it hasn't been tested. Starting would risk exposing limits. Starting would force reality to respond. So delay becomes a way to preserve fantasy while avoiding truth. Here's the uncomfortable part. Every delay is a vote for the person you are becoming. Not the person you want to become, the person you're rehearsing being. Habits are rehearsals, excuses are rehearsals, inaction is a rehearsal. And eventually rehearsal turns into identity. You begin to expect less from yourself. You lower standards quietly so it doesn't hurt as much. You stop aiming high, not because you're humble, but because disappointment has trained you to aim low. And once expectations drop, comfort feels justified. This is just who I am. That sentence is teach. Final stage of self-betrayal. The mind is efficient. If you repeatedly choose comfort over action, it rewires itself to protect comfort at all costs. Fear gets louder, resistance feels heavier, even small efforts feel exhausting. This isn't weakness, it's conditioning. You trained yourself to stop responding to challenge. And the cruelest part, you still remember the version of yourself who believed. That memory becomes a quiet source of shame. You avoid silence because silence reminds you. You distract yourself because distraction dulls the awareness. Comfort isn't just physical, it's psychological anesthesia. Delay turns years into blur. Ask anyone stuck long enough and they'll say the same thing. I don't know where the time went. Time didn't go anywhere. It was spent maintaining comfort instead of building future self-betrayal compounds. One broken promise makes the next easier, until one day keeping promises to yourself feels unrealistic. You don't even attempt consistency. You plan in theory and quit in practice. And when you fail again, you say, see, I knew it. That's not honesty. That's learned helplessness wearing the mask of realism. The moment you realize this is painful, because it means no one did this to you, comfort didn't force you, circumstances didn't decide for you, you participated, and that realization hurts. But it's also the doorway out, because the same mechanism that destroyed self-trust can rebuild it, but only if you stop delaying, only if you stop negotiating, only if you accept that discomfort is the entry fee for becoming someone you respect. Most people never make that choice. They stay in delay because delay doesn't demand courage, only patience. And patience feels safer than courage until patience runs out. All right, this is the turning point, where fear becomes clarity. This part is heavy, honest, and unforgettable. Here is part 4, why pain now is cheaper than pain later. Pain is unavoidable. That's the truth comfort never tells you. You don't get to choose whether you'll feel pain, only when and why. Pain now comes from effort, discipline, sacrifice, and uncertainty. Pain later comes from regret, resentment, stagnation, and knowing you waited too long. One builds you, the other eats you alive. Comfort convinces you that avoiding pain is smart, but all you're really doing is deferring it. You trade the sharp sting of growth for the slow ache of dissatisfaction. And the slow ache is more dangerous because it doesn't force change, it just drains you quietly. Discipline hurts immediately. It demands energy when you feel tired, focus when you want to escape, courage when fear feels logical. But discipline also ends. It has an off switch. You work, you rest, you push, you recover. The pain of discipline is temporary and purposeful. Regret doesn't work that way. Regret waits. It grows stronger with time. It replays moments you can't redo. It whispers what if when it's already too late. And there is no recovery day from regret. No rest period. No chance to go back and choose differently. It stays. Right now, pain feels optional. You can skip the workout, skip the work, skip the risk, skip the uncomfortable conversation, skip the hard choice, and nothing explodes. That's why comfort is seductive. But the bill is stacking quietly. Later, pain becomes mandatory. Later, you don't get to say, I'll start tomorrow. Later, the opportunity window closes. Energy fades. Responsibilities pile up. Fear hardens. And you realize something terrifying. The pain you avoided early has multiplied. Pain now asks for courage. Pain later asks for acceptance, and acceptance hurts more than effort ever will. Most people don't collapse from one big failure. They collapse from years of small avoidance. From choosing ease when they should have chosen effort, from waiting for motivation instead of building discipline, from believing they had more time than tea. Hey, actually did. Comfort tells you you can always change later. That's the lie. Later is not guaranteed, and even when later comes, you're not the same person. You're slower, you're more cautious, you're carrying the weight of missed chances. Pain compounds with age because regret adds emotional gravity. Hard things feel harder when you know you delayed them unnecessarily. Pain now strengthens identity. It builds proof. Proof that you can endure discomfort. Proof that your word means something. Proof that you're not controlled by impulse. Pain later erodes identity. It turns confidence into bitterness, ambition into nostalgia, dreams into stories you tell instead of lives you live. Ask anyone who chose comfort for too long and they'll tell you the same thing. I wish I had started sooner, not smarter, not better, sooner, because starting late costs more, demands more courage for less runway, more effort for fewer chances, More sacrifice for smaller margins. That's the interest comfort charges. Pain now feels unfair. Pain later feels deserved, and that's the cruelest part. Because deep down you know when you avoided it. You remember every moment you chose comfort over growth. And later when life feels smaller than it should have been, that memory becomes heavy. This is why disciplined people look calm. They're not avoiding pain. They're paying it early. This is why stagnant people look tired. They're paying it late. You don't escape pain by staying comfortable. You just change its form. One shapes you into something stronger. The other reminds you of what you could have been. And here's the truth no one wants to hear. The pain you're avoiding right now is nothing compared to the pain of becoming aware too late. This sets up the final transformation. Next is the moment everything changes, or doesn't.